Okay, John chapter 15, like I said, these are all the words of Jesus. I want to begin by reading the first 8 verses. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up, thrown into the fire, and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish, and it'll be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. I'd also like to read verses 16 and 17. Jesus continues, he says, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last. And so that whatever you ask in my name, the Father will give you. This is my command, love each other. What a powerful thing Jesus says here. Verse 5, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. And no doubt as we read through this, hopefully you caught that's a theme. That Jesus wants to work in us in such a way that we bear fruit. And the reason this is so relevant and powerful here, the Bible in many places speaks about Christians bearing fruit. Perhaps the most famous or most relevant passage comes from Galatians chapter 5, which simply says this: the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And when you see this list, perhaps you'll begin to get a sense of what it is that God wants to do in our lives. He is at work to change us. And there's a power that flows from the vine into the branches. It's a life-giving power that begins to change us from the inside out. Such a relevant, powerful passage. And here's why. Each one of us, I think at some level, this is what we want. We want the power to change. So here's the question: how does a selfish person change and become a generous person? Or how does a person who's boiling over with anger finally find peace of heart? Or how does a person that's all about themselves finally become generous and loving? Or how does an impatient person finally become patient? And this passage says the true power to finally do that is when we are connected to Jesus and his life-giving power flows from him into us. And it's powerful. To underscore how powerful it is, I want to just, again, verse 16. This is what Jesus says. He says, you did not choose me, but I chose you and appointed you so that you might go and bear fruit, fruit that will last. So this is the God of the universe, Jesus saying, I chose you, and I have a plan, and it's that my life-giving force goes into you so that you will bear fruit, which means, of course, you will change. And just to underscore it, this is from Romans chapter 8. The Apostle Paul says, for those God foreknew, he also, here's the term, predestined to be conformed to the image of his Son. This is amazing. It's speaking about how God, before he created the universe, before he stretched the stars out in the sky, he knew us. And he had a plan, and it was predestined that we would be changed to become more and more like Jesus. And for those he had this plan and he predestined this work, he called them, he worked in history to call them. Those he called, he justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. And this is what I want to highlight to you. That same God who stretched the stars out in the sky has this plan in such a way that he is going to focus all his intensity, all his immensities on changing us to be more like Jesus. And why I point this out, this passage is speaking about a tremendous power. A power to change us completely from the inside out. And probably when it comes to this whole topic of change, many of us have just become comfortable. We've just kind of gotten used to who we know there's things about us that are, difficult or terrible or annoying. But listen, if you don't want to change, I can guarantee you the people who live with you want it for you, right? And there's bookshelves in bookstores dedicated to this topic. And Jesus is saying, listen, there is a power that can flow into your life such that all the immensities and intensities of the character and person of God will flow in, and you have no idea the kind of change that will happen. So I want to talk about that power today, and I want to just spend some time with it because I think it's important. First thing I want to do is I want to say, what kind of power is it? What kind of power is it? And I want to distinguish this kind of power that I'm talking about from what you might call explosive power. This is an organic life power that flows in, and it's different from what I call explosive power. I've done this before, but I really like it. We're going to play a little game. Sunlight Community Church, shout out the right answer. Here it is, sledgehammer versus watermelon. Which one? The sledgehammer, right? When it comes to explosive power, there's no doubt the two collide. The sledgehammer, every single time, the watermelon, broken to pieces. Okay, we'll try again. Concrete block versus acorn. Okay, right? The concrete block, if we're talking about explosive power, the two come smashing together. The acorn is doomed. But the reason I set this up this way is I love this picture. And I just want to point out that there's another kind of power that's different than explosive power. It's the power of life. It's not always as perceptible. You don't notice it every day. But listen, some of us, we may have walls built up in our heart. It may feel like blocks of concrete. We say to ourselves, what could God ever do? And we're expecting if God's going to ever do something, it'll be like no, it won't be like a sledgehammer. Just little by little, as his life-giving organic power flows in, we will begin to change. Listen, a couple of, I don't know if this helps or not. In my backyard, a number of years back, it's probably 7, 8 years ago, I planted 2 mango trees. When I planted them, they were probably only this tall. And listen, if you go out to my backyard and you watch the mango trees, hour by hour, even day by day, even week by week, you would say nothing's happening. You cannot perceive its growth. But I can tell you the first year, maybe this little tree had 1 mango on it. And the second year, it was a little taller, and maybe I had still just 1 mango. And now the third year, fourth year, both these trees are now taller than I am. They're starting to have fruit on all kinds of fruit on these mango trees. Day by day, hour by hour, you wouldn't notice it because it's not explosive, in-your-face fireworks. It's life. It's organic. I have 3 girls. They're all growing up. I, day by day, can't tell. Every day I look at them, they look exactly the same as when I first met them when they were born. They don't. But each day I look at them, I cannot see the difference. It takes someone from the outside coming in, and they say, wow, your girls have grown. I don't notice it. Why? Because that life growth on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour thing. We don't notice it. We don't perceive it. Here's why I want to talk about this. I think it's important. If you're a Christian, you've heard that there's power. You've heard that God's going to change your life. And most of us were expecting some kind of explosion. But here Jesus is saying that his power works a little differently. He's a vine. We're the branch. If we cultivate a day-by-day relationship with him, his nourishment, his nutrients come into our life, and little by little we start to bear fruit. Here, a little drawing. I think there's a reason why many of us expect explosive growth. It's because, at least for some of us, that's how we became a Christian. And by the way, a lot of times when people tell their testimonies, the testimonies that are really riveting are the ones where there was like an explosion. God, when he saves people, there's all kinds of metaphors you'll find in the Bible for salvation. One of them is being born again. Another is a planting of a seed. And here, with regard to this metaphor of planting a seed, I would say that there's some people, the way they became Christians, I would call them pickaxe Christians. Here's what I mean by it. I mean that prior to Christ's work in their life, they were far from God. They didn't want anything to do with him. They were living a life that was, had nothing to do with God whatsoever. And then, well, here, those of you who are in this camp, you remember the day, you remember the hour, you remember the circumstance, and the ground was hard, and so God had to do something drastic in order to plant the seed. He took a pickaxe, and whammo, you felt it. And it was profound, and then he put the seed in the ground. And there are many people who, that's how they come to Christ. Not everyone, by the way, comes to Christ that way. Some of us, and I'm actually in this camp, we don't remember the day, we don't remember the hour. We just know that imperceptibly it happened. These are Christians that maybe the fields were plowed. God was working through our parents, through our church, through our lives. There were people who were coming in. The field was plowed and it was ready. And at some point, we don't even know exactly when, God took a seed and he just gently pushed it in. Anyway, sometimes I even talk to Christians who are, this second variety, and they say, boy, sometimes I wonder, is God even there? I don't have a story like the pickaxe Christians do. Listen, whether you're a pickaxe Christian, if that's how it started, or whether you're a plowed Christian, you're going to face the same concern, because after the seed's planted, you just don't keep having the explosions, and you may wonder to yourself, is God there? Is he working? And I just want to point out to you again this scripture passage. I find it so profound. Jesus, he's saying how it works. I'm the vine, you're the branches. If you remain in me, you'll bear much fruit. There is an organic life, growth, and change that if you're connected to Jesus will be at work. You may not notice it every day. It may not be profound, but little by little, slowly but surely, things will start to happen and you will begin to bear much fruit. So that's the kind of power it is. I'd like to ask the next question. The next question is this: how does it work? This being connected to the vine, you're a branch, the nutrients flow in. How does that work? And here I'd like to talk about this because I think it's important. There is a difference between the internal dynamic that we're speaking of when we're talking about this passage and what I'll call maybe external compliance or manual manipulation. Let me see if I can come at it this way. And here, this happens to me because I'm a pastor. Maybe it doesn't happen to all of you. But from time to time, married couples, they'll start to have one problem or another, and eventually someone will call me. And this is tough because if I give an illustration like this, it's bound to be one way or the other. It's either a stupid husband story or a stupid wife story, right? It's usually one or the other. I guess I'm a husband, so I identify more with the husband, so I'm just going to tell the stupid husband variety. But I want you to know that it works both ways, okay? So here's what will happen. I'll get a call. Bring, I'll answer the phone. It'll be the husband. And I'll say, listen, Scott, you probably had no reason to even know this, but my wife and I are having major problems. And she's so hopping mad she's about to leave. She's actually packing the bags right now. I begged her not to. She said she was going to. I said, what if we went and talked to the pastor? And she said, fine, I'll go talk to the pastor. And he'll say, this is my last chance. Will you please meet with me? And I'll say, sure, come on in. And so the husband and wife will come. And, you know, I shouldn't laugh at this. It's not funny. But this is what happens. The husband and wife will get there. And there's usually a piece of paper that the wife, she comes with. It's usually folded, and I see her start to unfold the paper. And, it has on it a list of the things that he's doing wrong. I call it the list of grievances. And so, when she's unfolding it, you're just wondering, how big is this piece of paper? And he's wondering the same thing. And I usually start, I say, after we pray, what's going on? And usually the person with the list of grievances start. And so she'll say, listen, here's the thing. I've been trying to tell you this, but you're controlling and you're manipulative, and everything always has to go your way, and you don't care about me. That'll be point number one. This is saying point number two. You're emotionally unavailable. I've tried to talk to you about these things, but you just brush me off. She'll say there's 8 more points. He'll just start to slink down. She'll proceed through all the points. And, he's usually heard it all before. He's just never heard it while I'm there listening. And so it's amazing what happens because I'm there listening. Often it starts to really sink in. And although he's heard it before, because they're sitting in my office, he hears it really now as though it's for the first time. And it's amazing what happens. He'll say something like, wow, I knew you felt this way, but I never knew how much I was hurting you and how much what I was doing was such a problem. And then usually what will happen is say, I'll change. You'll see. Just stick with me. And he makes a vow to change. He's going to be different. And usually the motivation is one of two things. Usually it's either fear or pride. Fear, he just can't imagine life without her, without the kids. He doesn't want it to happen. And so, please, I'll change. Or pride. He says to himself, man, I never wanted to be like all those other loser guys out there. I wanted to be a good husband. I want to be a good father. And it's almost like pride will just, I will not, fall into this category. I'm going to change. Okay. So there's a vow of change, and usually that change starts out with like gusto. I mean, it's like 0 to 100 right away. He's super motivated. Now, maybe you haven't been in my shoes. Can you guess what happens? How long does it last? You know what? It doesn't last that long. A couple months, 3 months, 4 months. I don't know how long, but guess what happens? Pretty soon, my phone rings again. Bring! And I can almost guess what's going on. That is change based on external compliance or manual manipulation. It's based on fear or pride. By the way, our problems are based on fear and pride. And so if you just try the solution to have the same root causes as the problem, things usually don't turn out well. That's manual manipulation. Jesus is talking about a different kind of change. He's talking about an internal change. A change that isn't forced from the outside. It's a change that bubbles up from within because you're so closely connected to him that his life starts to flow into yours. Listen, this change is usually not overnight. It's little by little, piece by piece. As you're closely connected to Jesus, he begins to conform you to his image. You're made more and more like him. If you're staring there looking at your life, you might not even see it. But over the course of the long haul, just the same way you can watch my kids growing up or watch my mango trees, you see that it happens. Anyway, that's how it works. What kind of power it is? it's organic life power. How it works, it's an internal dynamic that begins to mold and shape us. All right, now, listen. Here, this is what we want. How do I get it? How do I get that power? And maybe this is the most important question. And let me come at it this way. I'd like to talk to two groups of people. First, I'd like to talk to the Christians who are here. And then I'd like to talk to the non-Christians who are here. Let's start with the Christians. So, you're listening to this, you say, yeah, I really want that. I want to change. That's important. How do I get that? Because I don't have it. And here, let me suggest this. As a pastor, I see this all the time, first in myself, but then I see it in others as well. Here's what often happens. What often happens is that we gain complete clarity when it comes to how we came into the church and how we came into salvation. We get complete clarity about it. It's grace. It wasn't me. It was all God. It wasn't my power or my doing or my strength. It was all Him. We gain total clarity about the fact that we were completely dependent on Jesus. But then, here's what happens. We kind of get into the church, and listen, as you're becoming a part of a church, you just notice, although no one ever says it out loud, there's like the do's and the don'ts. And so because you're a Christian now, you start doing the do's, you start don'ting the don'ts, and you begin to kind of clean yourself up and fit in. And often you get busy in ministry, so there's places to serve in the church, and so you get serving in the church. And there's a lot of people serve in a lot of ways, and they're going, but something's wrong. Maybe I can put it this way, a Christmas tree. So I grew up in Montana. We didn't do what we do down here, which is pull out the plastic tree from the box year after year. You actually go out into the forest, you cut down the tree, you bring it into your house. And here's what you do when you get that Christmas tree stood up, is you start to decorate it. So you put on the lights, you put on all the ornaments, you put the star on, you put the tinsel. And when you're all done, man, the tree looks fantastic, looks beautiful, looks really, really good. You've decorated the outside of the tree. But as the Christmas season wears on, you get a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks in, what starts to happen? Well, that tree has no longer got roots. It's no longer sucking up the nutrients. And so although the outside looks really good, the inside starts to wither. And all I'm saying is this. Christians can come in with a lot of clarity about how it's all God and we need Christ's power and that's what saved me. And then you kind of get busy and you get decorated and you clean up the outside so you fit in really well, but you fail to do something, which is cultivate a life-giving relationship with Jesus every single day. And listen, I might as well just say it straight out. I know this to be the case. There are many of us who are here in church today. The only time we're fed is on Sundays in church. So you come here and listen, I take it seriously. I've got to feed those of you who are Christians here. And so every week I do my very best. The only way you're ever going to get fed and taken that life is if I present Jesus to you. And so I do my level best to let you have Jesus each week. And I point out the gospel of salvation, that we're saved from our sins and freed to serve. And hopefully you get fed. That's my goal, but that's not enough. And if you really want to change, you've got to be connected to Jesus. And my goal, truthfully, as a pastor is this, that every single Christian becomes what I call a self-feeding Christian. It's so important that, here, listen, you start to take up this Bible for yourself so that you have a friendship with Jesus, a life-giving friendship with Jesus. You begin a daily walk with Him in prayer. You've got to each and every day preach the gospel to yourself. You've got to remind yourself, listen, I'm a sinner. I make a mess out of everything. But Jesus is at work, and His power can flow into my life. And I've got to rely on Him. And you've got to every single day, you've got to become a feeding Christian. Don't be a Christmas tree Christian. You look good on the outside, but inside you're withering. Please, if you're here and you're a Christian, Jesus is calling you, come to him. I'm the vine, you're the branches. Remain in me. Develop that kind of life-giving relationship with him so that every day his nourishment's flowing into your life. Okay, that's to the Christians. To the non-Christians. So sometimes I get this far and you see it. I mean, bookstores have bookshelves filled with how to change, but they're just external manipulation, and it's not going to work. And you want this real change. You want to be changed inside. And so you say, okay, I want that, Scott. And then here's the follow-up question. What are the rules? What do I have to do? And, I mean, maybe even you're thinking things like this. Listen, I've heard that if I become a Christian, he's going to reorient my love life. But I don't want that. So that's going to be hard. Or maybe you've heard that God's going to want you to start tithing, giving away 1/10 of your income. But that's going to be hard. I don't know if I want that. Or maybe you know that Jesus is going to want for you to forgive people that have done incredible harm to you. You're like, oh, that's going to be hard. I don't know if I can do all that, Scott. If you're in that camp, I want to say two things to you. First, you are making Christianity way too hard. And then secondly, you're making Christianity way too easy. Way too hard. Let's take that one first. Christianity stands out uniquely among every world religion. It is not a set of rules. If you're making into a set of rules, things you have to do and not do, you've got it all wrong. Christianity is simply this, a life-giving relationship with Jesus. Each week when you come here, I do my level best to use 3 words to describe the gospel: sin, salvation, service. One of my aims in using these 3 words repeatedly is that you inherently will know the order. It's not service first and then salvation. It's sin, salvation, and then service. Maybe I can put it this way. You don't have to first bear fruit in order to finally be connected to the vine. Look, first you're connected to the vine, then you bear much fruit, not the other way around. There's not a set of rules. You don't have to. Just come have a relationship with Jesus. Don't make it too complicated. Don't make it too complicated. Not a set of rules. Just come to him. You're also, secondly, making it way too easy. You think to yourself that there's just like 3 or 4 things that Jesus wants to do. He wants to change these? No. Not even close. Listen, Jesus did not come to torment your everyday normal life. You know what he came to do? Kill it. Jesus said, anyone who will come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Now, when I say that, I don't want you to get this wrong. Listen, when Jesus begins to do his work in his life, it, by the way, is not going to be difficult. You're not going to say to yourself, oh man, this way he wants to reorient my love. No. When he starts reorienting your love life, you're going to say to yourself, man, I can't believe I was living that other way this whole time. This is so much better. What Jesus wants for me is so much better than what I was pursuing for myself. When Jesus starts addressing you about becoming a generous person, you're not going to be like, oh, I hate generosity. You're going to love generosity. You're going to say to yourself, what a joy I'm getting out of this. This is unbelievable that I have this opportunity to use resources that God's given me to follow the way of my master Jesus. When Jesus starts working on your heart to forgive people, it's not going to be like, oh man, I just don't. You're going to, listen, you will be so touched and affected by the forgiveness that comes to you through Jesus. It'll just happen naturally. You'll let go of your grudges, and it'll be wonderful. When I say that Jesus wants to kill your life, don't take it as a negative. It's so wonderful, but he wants the old person to die so that the new person can come to life. Whether you're a Christian or not a Christian, it's a bottom line, simple thing. Jesus is saying, I'm the vine, you're the branches. Come, abide in me, and my life-nourishing organic force will pour in, and you'll be totally changed, bearing much fruit that will last. All right. I don't normally end this way, but I thought it'd just be a good idea to end this way today. What's Jesus saying to you? Like, as you listen to this, and I in a way, I just need to be quiet, but as you listen to this, what do you hear him saying to you? When do you hear him calling? What pricked your conscience? What captured your thoughts? I'd like to just pause for a moment. Whatever that is, wherever you hear Jesus calling, whatever he's saying, and I'm sure to each one of us it's something different. Whatever that is, just come. I am the vine, you are the branches. Come and let this life-giving, organic force flow into your life and change you from the inside out. Let's pray.